one who was constantly buried in either books, or I was just one who just was very, very driven. Like I always wanted to be achieving something. So food and meal times would actually get in the way.
Like they say about the roots, right? So you do have the root, I presume, from your mother.
100%.
Because the way you explain food and the way you go into the depth of it, it's not only where it comes from, the history, the culture, and the background around food, but what it does to you and so on. So I understand that is some way coming in from your mother.
100%. It was also, for me, a lot was about student life and not splurging. But more than eating, what I love is the idea of discovery. It's the discovery part of it.
Your videos and your podcast doesn't only tell that. In fact, what you said is what your videos actually. I think you put your heart out there, like you always do with food. They read it all in.
They took it in. I remember when I moved back to Dubai, I was like, isn't it nuts that actually Dubai is closer to all these places? And I just thought, why haven't I found them here? They must be here, right? And that's when I started looking.
And it's so funny because when I came to Dubai, I wasn't a foodie back then, like I mentioned earlier. And Dubai is the place where I have tried so much of even the Indian cuisine that I have tried in Dubai, because we're such a multicultural city, be it food or people, and that's where we've tried it.
If you have lived in Dubai for so long, you're going to be so comfortable flexing your way through different cultures. You will become knowledgeable and you will become adept.
I'm presuming that's not in Dubai, because I think you studied
in the US.
In Philadelphia?
Yes, so that was correct. In Philadelphia. So we decided, alongside our degrees, we would just do this as a side hustle.
Okay.
The only thing I would really look forward to were my Friday dinners. Because we would step out, and that would be our time as a family to get out, explore one place. It would happen once a week, and that to me was incredibly exciting. So I think a little bit was sparked there. Another part was sparked because my mum is not just a fantastic cook, but she is also a nutritionist. Sure. So again, this was not in my original life cards. That is not what I had expected to play. But when I moved back, I'd started a food blog as a side hustle back in 2010. That's what people had started doing, is they, in New York, the food blogging scene had already taken off, and I was so inspired by food bloggers there. Especially there was a lady who used to write a blog called, I think, The Girl Who Eats, or The Girl Who Ate Everything. And I just was completely enamored by her. And her writing. And so I came back, I'm like, this is what I want to do. I started a food blog. I even applied to Time Out Dubai. I was like, okay, I'll become a food writer as a side hustle. And literally, crickets chirping, because they probably were like, who's this person?
Okay.
Right? Because I just moved back.
Yeah.
Who is this random person?
What's your Dubai experience?
I mean, not even that. They probably were just like, they must get 100 emails every day. I'm so glad they didn't respond. I'm so glad.
Yes.
Because that's when I started the blog. And I remember speaking to one of my mentors in the US, and she said, what do you want to be known for? I'm like, who thinks about all this? I just want to start a food blog. Like, that's all I want to do.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was eating everything. Like, I would write about something I'd had in a food court. I'd write about something high-end, something casual. Like, it was just all over the place.
Yeah, and you also did a bit of the blogging bit, like how the influencers today did.
Yes,
yeah, you mentioned that somewhere.
Exactly. So there were big restaurants were so excited. Wow, this is free publicity. Let's kind of invite everyone. But then I quickly realized that was not exciting me at all.
I read about that and I heard you say that.
Because I realized the whole world is writing about the same thing. Could it not be any more deathly boring?
Exactly what's happening right now with the influencers.
Yeah. And like I come back to this point of discovery, right? So where's the discovery in that if like 20 people tomorrow are going to post about exactly the same thing? Like, I don't care. I just don't want to do that. I might go and eat it. It might be delicious. That's fine. But in terms of a content creator, that is not what I want to focus on, right?
Okay.
I can't tell you a unique story in that case. So when my mentor asked me that question, by that point, I had already moved into this zone where I was starting to say, I'm going to move away from all of this. I love it's great that there's free food as an option, but that is not at all what's exciting me.
Yeah.
I'm going to start walking. I'm going to get lost on the streets that I grew up on. I'm going to discover stuff. I'm going to find again that feeling of discovery. Ooh, I never had Egyptian food. Look at these guys making Egyptian food. Like, and so in that whole thing, I realized what I wanted to be known for
And you figured out your purpose
yes,
and niche.
that was it. Like if someone said street food in Dubai or someone said food culture in Dubai, I wanted my name to be in that sentence.
And that's exactly where you are. I mean,
Yeah.
a culinary tourism company sounds so exciting.
Yeah.
That comes to my question of the names of your companies or the podcast or the show. So we've got Frying Pan Adventures, we've got Deep Fried, and we've got now Ditch the Silver.
Yes.
How do you even get these names? Do you like sit brainstorming, or do
God,
they come
no.
out of a conversation? Or
You
what
want the real
happens
story?
there?
I feel like
The
I should have a
real story.
really good, like, yes, I hired a company, and no, that did not happen. What happened was with my blog, I had a horrible name. I can't even say it. It's so cringeworthy.
Go ahead. We'll at least
It was
compare it
no,
with
it's
the
like
good
literally.
names.
Oh my god. Okay, it was okay. It was called Foodo Nymph. Okay, I'm like, why would I do that? Anyway, it's just making me cringe just saying it. Regardless, I called a friend who is really, like a food soulmate from college. He is a marketing genius.
Okay.
And I was like, I really want to change this horrible name that I came up probably in the dead of the night. Just can you help me out? And he's like, why don't you, nowadays people are going in for the long names. So why don't you call it I Live in a Frying Pan? Because
Okay.
you kind of, Dubai is a little bit hot like a frying pan.
Yeah.
So let's do it that way. And so I was like, okay, fine, let's take it. No brainstorming, nothing. I'm like, okay, let's just go with it. It's just a food
Yeah.
blog anyway. But what happened was when I wanted to start Frying Pan Adventures, I didn't have a name at that point, but the blog had already built up a small community.
Okay.
So it made sense for me to not lose that community, and I wanted the two to be connected in
Sync,
that
yeah.
way. So that's why I said, okay, the natural thing is to call it Frying Pan Adventures.
Okay.
In retrospect, I would have named it something completely different. I don't think
Like?
it's great from, I don't know, but just from an SEO standpoint, in terms of,
Yeah.
in terms of it jumping out in your face that we are
Yeah.
a walking food tour
Food
company.
something.
It doesn't really tell you that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it might have just simply been Dubai food tours. And I
Yeah.
think that would actually be better from a business angle.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're so carried away with sounding creative
the
and cool.
intent and the
then,
emotional power of it.
Yeah. And then 10 years later, it's like, really, why did I pick that name? It grows old on you very quickly.
But then you see, these are the names that are trending now, and that's what people want to have.
Exactly.
Out of the box conversations. Like,
Yeah.
okay, deep fried. That's like.
Well, so that I really enjoyed was
Yeah.
that deep fried was a natural sort of, it came out of Frying Pan Adventures. We wanted something connected again, but that I still feel even today it hasn't gone old, like
Oh,
for
yes,
example
it is.
Foodo Nymph. Anyway, so deep fried was just a natural. It was a baby of Frying Pan Adventures. It just made sense.
It's a beautiful name. And now Ditch the Silver, which
Right.
you mentioned is what you don't like. Yeah, you like your casual eating. You don't want the cutlery.
I don't want the silver. Yes, so Ditch the Silver, I've intentionally named it that actually because I wanted it to be a separate baby from Frying Pan Adventures. It will always be, there will always be a connection between the two, but this one is going to be separate
Should
completely.
we speak about Ditch the Silver?
Let's
Would you
absolutely.
want to put the cat out of the bag? I know you've put a couple of stories talking about it,
Yes.
and I'm the first one to like, okay, what's Arva up to? And I would
Yeah.
look at your stories. Would you tell us about Ditch the Silver? I understand.
Sure.
Let me tell you. Let me get you to talk about it.
For sure, I'd love to. So I think, over a decade ago, at the same time this food blog and all of that was happening, this idea of a food show was there in the back of my head, but I just felt like, who am I kidding? It's a dream. So many of us have this dream, like, oh, I want to eat the world and, be on TV. It's just like one of those really high flown scenarios you have in your mind that has no meat to it.
Correct.
But what also made it, what deepened that desire was the fact that even before I launched Frying Pan Adventures, there was a team that had reached out because they'd seen my blog and they had wanted me to be on the show along with the person who was coming down. And this was for Travel Channel. It was a show called Bizarre Foods with Andrew Zimmern. And in the
Wow.
US, it was a big show. So I had enjoyed working on that show so much.
Oh, okay.
So much. And for me, it's never about actually seeing myself on the screen. That part, I think, is the most painful part of it all. When you hear your own voice or you see yourself, you're
Oh,
like,
no.
why did I
You
do
sound
this? Why did I
amazing.
adjust my chain? I feel like my chain is constantly in the wrong place. And I'm like, I don't want to look at my face at all. Like when
I don't
it's
think
just-
anybody is looking at any of that when you're
I know,
talking
I've
about
realized
food.
Literally now everyone's going to be looking at my chain. Guys, never look at my chain in my videos. It's like always lopsided. it. I think that's my good luck omen now. But I think that process of uncovering stories and connecting with people in restaurants in that way, because when you're going in with a team and you're going to shoot something, the connections you build are actually much deeper. The story that you're covering, you're basically being like a journalist.
Yeah.
And I found that exhilarating. I find this idea of creating content exhilarating in that way.
How did it come to you?
How
did this idea just come to you?
In terms of Ditch the Silver?
Yeah.
So the idea has always been there, but I just never wanted... What I wanted was for somebody to come to me and say, hey, we want you on a food show.
Yeah, I heard that about you when you mentioned that on your story, that way then, what you wanted to do would have been better as a part of show. But today, what you're starting is what it is, because people are more, nobody looks at a TV show as such, as they would look at YouTube on social media.
Yeah.
So what didn't happen then happened now,
Exactly.
right in time, exactly the way you wanted. How do you feel about it?
I mean, honestly, I feel like I'm late in the game. This is, the right time to have started a YouTube show would have been 10 years ago. But I think when I look back and I see what I've learned and how I've grown as a presenter, for me personally, the time is so right now. And also because last year I made this decision that I'm going to get out of my little hole of working on my business in front of my computer, like constantly, just in this very small circle. I'm going to step out of that and I'm going to start meeting other people and taking other courses. And I think that has been such a game changer. So one of them that I did this year was the Presenters Bootcamp with TI22. And honestly, the first time I saw TI22 and Reem Alhouni is the lady who runs it. She posted about this. And I was like, this is kind of cool, but I don't ever want to be a in-studio presenter. That's not what I want to do. And then she reached out and she's like, you should really consider doing it.
Yeah.
And she did that a couple of times. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to just do it. Like, let's see.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to, it's not what I want to do, but it's fine.
But I'm so glad you did it.
I'm
so glad you spoke about it, because you've sparked something in me there to do that course. Because the way you gave feedback about that course, and from your story, from you talking about it, I went on to see Reem, because I love doing podcasts, I love talking about food, I love doing shows. I'm like, okay, this looks interesting to me. And the way you put yourself out there, because like you said, it's not always about what you do, it's about self-discovery. Like they say in Dubai, your net worth is based on your network. And your net worth is not always about the money part, it's about the people you meet. And nowadays, it is about building relationship, because sometimes you find your vision and you find your goals by meeting that person, like, hey, this is what I want to do. And 100%. I think that's what you got out of Reem, right? When you did that course.
I mean, I'm so, she really is someone who is very, very inspiring and very obviously, given the line of work she's in, but also I think just because she is really passionate about it, is putting yourself out there and building your video content. The thing was, though, when I went into the course, I really thought that it would equip me with enough skills whereby I would emerge from the course and then someone would approach me and say, hey, why don't you do a food show? Because I have honestly worked for many other food shows over the years, right? And every single time people would say, oh, why don't you have your own food show? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for the opportunity to open up, right? Except that's not how life works. You have to
open it for yourself, which you did.
I think the real wake-up call was when Reem was showing us some data on how different distribution channels, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Amazon, whether it's whatever, how they perform versus our traditional TV. And then suddenly the whole conversation, I mean, this was in On Air too, the whole conversation shifted to YouTube. And I was very uncomfortable because I thought, oh my God, all these years, like, I literally don't want to do YouTube. Like, why are we talking about YouTube? I mean, my team had been saying through COVID about YouTube. And I was like, no, YouTube, not our thing. I don't want us to be like another set of food, vloggers. It's just not what I want to do. It just really made me cringe. And then now I'm sitting in this camp and I'm like, oh God, now we're talking about YouTube.
But right place, right time.
Oh my goodness. Because I think I left that last day, I left with a serious sense of discomfort. Because I think I had been pushed into a zone where I was like, wait a minute. Okay, so what is being said by experts in the industry is that the channels that I always thought I wanted to be on are no longer performing.
Yes.
And that no one is going to come around and knock on your door and be like, here's the food show. Do you want to be part of it? It doesn't work like that.
You just create your own.
You need to put yourself out there. And
Yeah.
I was like, what does that mean?
But again, that discomfort is again something which worked on your favor. That discomfort probably
100%.
needed to come to shake you up and
I
put your
think
show
so.
out there. And I think that's how Ditch the Silver was born, right?
100%. I think this is the thing with me is whenever I feel uncomfortable and at that level where it's really sort of affecting me, then I will double down to deal with that discomfort. I will go out and I'll figure out exactly what needs to happen to resolve it. And I think that's what's been happening over the last 2 months for me.
Amazing. So, correlated questions: Ditch the Silver and Frying Pan Adventures. Yeah. So, how do you pick your eateries? Like, on what basis? Like, I'm sure you do a lot of research. And if I may tell to the audience, you're a lovely part of how I came across you. So, I always followed you as Frying Pan Adventures, being a foodie, being a restaurateur. My friend calls me, my ex-colleague, and listen, I need to do something at the restaurant. I'm like, okay, do whatever. What do you want? You want this food? I'll get it done and all. And then he tells me a process that you have with your people. I mean, I'm like, wow, this is so creative. And I find myself lucky that I was there, that I got to meet you, because otherwise I would not come in. I'm like, I don't know, want to get in front of his interview. So just to let you know, Arva's process of finding her guides is that they have to discover a hidden gem, a eatery, and they have to present the food and the menu out there. And then she'll do the tasting and the interview and so on and so forth. So could you tell us some bit about that, or the insides?
Interestingly, the process has changed, but yes,
Okay.
that is how we did do it in the past, where people had to go through and fill out this application form, which gives us a very good idea of who's really interested or not. But then we would say, assume that we have either, it could be Farida or myself, one of the two, my sister or I could be interviewing, and we would say, you have 3 hours. Imagine that we have only 3 hours in Dubai.
Yeah.
It's our first time. What's the one place you would take us to? And that has to be a place with a personal story for you.
Okay.
Your connection with the city. And it was our way of meeting a person over food and seeing them in their element in a way that would help us project whether you would be good on the tours. However, since then, we have actually dramatically changed the process because we feel that it was not a scalable process. You know, for us to, if there are like 50 people who are applying just to get it in the schedule, we're just limiting ourselves. But also, it's actually easy to talk about what you're passionate about.
I'm so glad you've changed the process after I discovered you and you discovered
Yes.
me. I'm so happy about that. At least this way I could put my Bombay
Yes.
Rava fry out there.
You
get
were,
to
you were
taste
literally
that.
the last. You were the last one in that process.
Oh, I'm
and
so
then
happy.
Now we will actually take people on a mini mock tour. We will
Wow.
take people who have come through and who we've accepted through the first round. We don't have one-on-one conversations anymore. You just
Okay.
come for a mini mock tour, like
Okay.
half of what we normally would do.
Okay.
And you introduce yourselves. In that introduction itself, we can kind of make out what your energy level is, so we can do that. But then you come back a week later, and that's going to be happening this week. They would come back and they have to give an element of the tour. We assign them a certain element, we give them training materials, and we see how we're going to perform. And I think that is a more realistic indication.
It is so amazing. It's so unique because then exactly the connect with food. You're not just saying, okay, here's a shawarma, or how you would explain where is it from, the guy selling it for 35 years and so on.
That's it. And you know, that's what we realized is everybody is passionate about eating, but telling a food story or telling people that something is delicious without using the word delicious.
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't want to insult people's intelligence. We get some incredibly well-traveled, far better travel than we are on the tours. They've tasted everything.
Yeah.
You don't want to be telling them something is tasty, because what if the next second they're like, actually, that's not so tasty.
Yeah.
Right? And so you can't insult intelligence. And so it requires a very different kind of skill, which is more of public speaking and performance oriented than it is even food knowledge. Food knowledge will equip you with, we'll train you on that.
And
but
I think that's your discovery. That's what Arva, like she would call a falafel gooey, soft, crunchy. You know, it's not amazing or it's not tasty. Coming back to Farida, so you mentioned about your sister Farida.
Yes.
How was she involved with you in Frying Pan Adventures, and who's the secret sauce behind the scenes of who does what?
So Farida is the reason why Frying Pan actually came to be, because back in the day when you wanted to start a tourism company, you had to have someone with minimum 3 years tourism experience. And Farida was the only one in the family who actually miraculously had that. And so she really saved me. And that's the reason why having a name on the trade license, it was just meant to be a paper formality. But then as the business took off and the tours started becoming more intense, I needed more help. So it became from, hey, Farida, will you help me with emails, to like, oh my God, we need more guides. And then eventually ending up in the field of running, out on the field running tours, to when I went away on maternity leave, Farida essentially just running the whole show.
Amazing.
So we are very much, we have our own separate things that we're good at, but when one is away, the other one can kind of step in for the most part and take over things. So we really, the way we separate is anything that involves, for example, working with travel agents. Like, she has a hospitality background. Farida is an ex-hotelier. So anything that involves customer service, anything which involves travel agents, anything that involves patience.
I get that.
Right. Anything that involves patience is Farida. Okay. Anything that is more on the actual business running side, whether it's finances or, for example, us launching a new loyalty program, this kind of stuff, that will usually come from me. So it sort of just falls into place in that way.
Amazing.
Yeah. And then from a tour creation standpoint, it's both. It really depends. Like, there are tours that she has entirely created, and then there are tours that I've done, and then like you have our Dubai Mall tour, we both have contributed to that together. So
I
it
was
really
just coming to the Dubai Mall tour. Your tours are all about cultures and walking, going out there in our city. How did this Dubai Mall thing happen? Because we know what Dubai Mall is known for. I might go to a food court, I might go to a nice cafe, and frankly speaking, I've not read much about your Dubai Mall tour. So how did that come? Could you tell us more about that?
Sure. So it began pretty simple as us, for every summer, we are thinking of new ways in which we can sort of, try to keep the business going. Because summer is really hard for a lot of tourism companies that are primarily outdoor based. And we still haven't cracked, we hadn't cracked the code. And this year, again, we got back to the drawing board. And then this was an idea that had been thrown out many years ago as a joke. Hey, you guys should go into Dubai Mall. And I was like, guys, maybe we pick up that joke and actually run with it and see what happens. And I remember we were all literally sharing falafel and hummus, our tiny little team of 3. And I thought the other 2 were just, Farida and Atya, she's our logistics sort of magician. I thought they would look at me and just poo-poo all over the idea. And they were like, actually, why don't we? Then that's 3 for 3. So I guess we have to do this now. And so we began because we wanted something that would keep us going during the summer. And we went in quite skeptical, I won't lie. Okay, because we are old Dubai, souls. But then as we started eating through and shortlisting, it was a very long process. This is one of the longest design processes we've done. We started realizing that, oh my God, there's actually homegrown places.
Absolutely.
There are places with, foods that we just never knew that this stuff existed, and they're tucked away in here and there. And now suddenly there are stories to be told behind these things. And by the end, it came down to a point where we had to actually sit down and say, if we don't drop some of the places we love from this, it's going to be 5 hours. We can't have a 5 hour.
Considering how big Dubai Mall is.
Exactly. So we had to really sit down and cut it down. And I think now, I remember the last time Farida came back from the Dubai Mall food tour, and she's like, Arva, this is right now my favorite tour.
Amazing.
And I was like, wow, I just can't believe we're in this place. So we had 2 German guests who joined us on our last one, German ladies traveling to Dubai. They had done layovers in Dubai before, but just at the airport. They had never stepped out. And they're like, we just, never really thought of Dubai. Just not interested in like the fancy buildings, not our kind of city. But this time we decided we are going to step out. And this is the only tour you had going on. So we signed up for this. And I was like, wow.
Digressing a little on the Dubai Mall and coming back to your cultural side, because that's what you're known for. You're in a little integration with food and as to how you explain it and how you understand the source of it. I some time back, saw your bit about speaking about dates and supporting a particular community, because when it's food, you also talk about the community.
100%.
You also speak around the food aspect of it. Like, I started washing dates because of you.
Yeah.
I'm like, who washes dates? And I'll tell you, I also goofed up because me being me, I washed the whole set and I dried them and I kept it in the container. I'm like, okay, this is not working. Then I realized that I probably have to wash it before.
Right before you eat it.
And then I see your story about where you source it from. So how do you circle around supporting a particular community and, the date where it shouldn't come from or where it should come from? How do you do that?
I mean, this is such a fascinating question, because I think because I have entered or started learning about communities with the angle of their food first, it gives them humanity. It's very different than learning about a community first through the news.
Yeah.
And this was my interaction with Palestine. Many years ago, Dima Sharif, she's a fantastic cookbook author, written plated heirlooms, just like an authority.
And I think that's one podcast, The Deep Fried, has an episode
an
on her.
With her on Sumac. And she really created an awareness and a love for Palestinian food in me. So I really came from that angle. I really didn't begin with the politics, and it was much later that got layered on.
Okay.
But I think if I didn't have that connection of, I love your food, I want to learn more about your people, I want to understand.
Culture,
Now suddenly when you see the politics, it's a very different ball game, because you can't be like, oh, them the victims.
Yeah.
I've eaten your food. I've connected with your community, right?
Yeah.
So now I feel it very, very deeply. And so, one of the things I've always loved is Palestinian medjool dates. I have done blind taste testings across different, tried all of the different ones. And that one has been my favorite over the years, even before I knew about the political, I had got into the whole political side of it. But every year I go before Ramadan, stock up on my Palestinian medjool dates. And then something this year, because of, the genocide that's been going on, I just was like, where's the source of these Palestinian dates?
Why did this curiosity come into you?
Because I was seeing so much online about sourcing of things, mislabeling and misrepresentation of things, that it just suddenly, there's some things you don't ask.
Yeah.
You're like, it says Palestinian, why would you ask?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then suddenly I was like, wait, maybe I should ask.
Yeah. And did you?
And then I was not happy with the answers I was getting, because it was like, things are bought in wholesale, things get mixed, we don't know it. I started to ask in all my networks, started to get suppliers on. People were first like, yes, no, we're sure they're from... And then suddenly I'd keep asking questions, and then they'd be like, actually...
Understand.
Right? We don't know. We're not sure. And I'm like, wait, if you're not sure, then you're not... This started frustrating me, because I didn't know. I will say Kipson's was the one that actually showed me certificates.
Okay.
Right, of their dates being so I think they actually have a legit source. But for the most part, I couldn't. I had, people like serious date traders and professionals, information that was coming at me. And I realized, oh my goodness, we actually don't know at all. And that to me means, because it's just, if you look at the stats of production from that area, most of them don't actually come from Palestine.
This is, it
blew my mind.
That tells your deep connection with not only the food and the community.
I was so upset. I just was like, wait, all this time, this is where my money has gone.
Yeah.
And so I realized,
Not anymore.
Not anymore. So now I'm like, I don't know. You just don't know. If you don't know, then you better just... Anyway, we should buy as much locally as we can. And we have some really fantastic local dates, thanks to Baraka dates and all of this.
Yeah.
So, I've started doing that. But it just really opened my eyes to asking questions, because sometimes, we take so much for granted.
Absolutely. For the choices we have.
100%. And I'm glad you wash your dates.
Thank you.
I've been down that rocky road before.
Right. Okay, Arva, we're going to do a little palate cleanser now, and we move on to another course. So we're done with our starters and a bit of mains. So could you give me an acronym of your name, food related? For example, A, appetizing, and so on.
Oh dear, this is tough.
I know, it wouldn't be tough for you.
Yeah, but I wouldn't think in terms of adjectives, right?
No, so this is an acronym food related because the
100%.
adjectives are coming in
I mean,
later.
Yeah.
So appetizing, that kind of acronyms.
Ah.
So we've got A.
Yeah, I would rather just go with like, I'll do it as foods that I love.
Yeah, so it's
Appams.
foods. Appams. Okay, not bad. Okay.
Appams.
And then R.
Would be, wow, I'm like literally blanking. I should know this.
I got you on a spot.
Yeah, I don't know. It's all of them are, all of the ones that are coming are Indian, which is not necessarily how I eat at all, but just so that we can move this along. Rava dosa.
Rava dosa. Okay. We've got
V. V is hard.
V is hard. You
It's all the French
You
stuff.
probably want to say a restaurant's name that starts from
Vasai local.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And A.
A again.
I'm sure
have
you'll
to pick
have lots
something
with
with
A.
different
Yeah,
culture.
it's difficult. Yeah.
I'll say akoob.
Akoob.
Do you know what akoob is?
Yeah, it's I think it's one of the episodes you spoke about on akoob.
Wow, you're so good. Yes, it is a Palestinian herb that unfortunately they are banned from picking because life is just silly like that.
Right. Now we use the same with adjectives. So what's Arva like? Giving acronyms to your name.
Okay, so again, acronyms. This is killing me because I don't think it.
I love that I'm killing you in a way.
Because
For good.
Okay, I am ambitious, but not in sleaze
I
sort
thought
of
that
way.
funnily I put that up as an example to give on, but yeah.
Ambitious. R is rash.
Okay.
Very rash. Lack patience. V is vocal. And A again. I'm definitely
Abundant.
not affable.
Affirmative with food.
I guess.
Attractive.
Definitely not.
Yeah, with the food part. Attraction could come in many ways, yeah?
I guess so.
Yeah.
Maybe abundant.
Abundant, yeah.
I like that.
Cool. We do a quick rapid fire with you. That's the final course, exciting part of the meal, which I call it the dessert. What's your all-time favorite dish to cook?
Oh dear. I am not big into... I don't cook much, to be honest. I do love to cook tagine, and I think my favorite recipe is the one that Dalia Dogmush has... I'm massacring her name. Dalia, if you're listening to this, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to pronounce your last name. But Dalia.
Yeah.
So Dalia's posted up the best ever, easiest lamb shank
Okay.
tagine, and I am a sucker for lamb shank.
So that's the dish you cook, yeah?
100%.
Sweet or savory?
Savory.
One ingredient you cannot live without.
I don't know.
So you have many, I'm presuming, but what could be one?
Zaatar.
Zaatar. I love zaatar too. What's your guilty pleasure food?
I don't have guilty pleasures at all. I just enjoy all kinds of food.
Amazing. Favorite cuisine to eat out?
It would be anything from the Arab world, actually.
Interesting. Cool. Coffee or tea?
Both.
If you had to launch your food to a company apart from UAE, which would be another country that you would launch in?
Saudi.
What's your favorite kitchen gadget?
My knife.
Great. Now this is the last one. If you were a spice, what would you be?
I would be a Sichuan pepper.
Wow, hot and spicy. Great. All right, that wraps up on our flavorful journey with you, Arva. Thank you so much for coming in and telling us the stories that you've told us. As you know, I have so many more questions to ask you. I guess I'll do that on another time that we meet. So
over food at your restaurant.
Over food at my restaurant and doing our bombil here. So you're truly an inspiration to me, like I mentioned that to you earlier, to the food and beverage industry out here, putting it differently, putting it uniquely, and to our city, Dubai. So thank you so much for coming out here.
It was such a pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you. To our wonderful audience, thank you for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. And just like a great meal, I'm sure you've been wanting for more. All right, lovely people. Let's take a little detour from our usual food talks. What's your take on money and financial independence? Our next guest is somebody who embodies financial independence. He doesn't work for money, but he lets his money work for him. Stay tuned to find out who our next guest is and how he has mastered the art of handling money and everything around money. See you soon. May God bless each and every one of you with good health and loads of wealth. This is Supriya signing off from Culinary Conversations with Supriya. See you again. Ma salama and good luck.